Hey everybody, welcome to AstroTalk and Tea, Taurus season. Taurus season began yesterday on April 19th and will run until May 20th of 2020. In these talks, I always like to begin by sharing some of the characteristics or qualities associated with the sign that we're talking about, in this case, Taurus. So I'm going to begin by sharing that some things that come to mind when I think about Taurus is it's an earth sign, right? So Tauruses are often stewards of the earth. They feel a deep connection to the earth, whether it is, they're involved or active in environmentalism, or it can just be that Tauruses can really appreciate things like, the beauty of a sunset, or the waves crashing into the beach, or the smell of fresh cut grass, or being surrounded by trees in a forest. They really take a lot of pleasure in those earthly things. Tauruses also are typically plant lovers, animal lovers for sure. Taurus energy is really creative. I think a lot of times, Pisces and Libra often get attributed with a sense of creativity, but Taurus, the sign being ruled by the planet Venus, shows that it has a lot of creative potential in different ways. And Tauruses are also very kinesthetic. They're very hands-on learners, and they love to kind of work with and manipulate things with their hands as well. Taurus energy loves comfort, loves familiarity, loves knowing what comes next and being able to kind of plan for and anticipate what's going to happen in the future. Tauruses are also very sensual typically. So separating that from the idea of sexual, when we think sensual, I think five senses. They love appreciating good tastes and smells, beautiful music, things they can see with their eyes that are beautiful to them. They really get a lot of fulfillment and satisfaction from what they can take in from the world in their five senses. Additionally, Tauruses are very direct and straightforward. They don't like to overcomplicate things. They really want to get straight to the heart of any matter that they're involved with, and they really enjoy and appreciate simplifying things down. With Taurus, it's kind of like what you see is what you get. There's not a whole lot of pretense there. Additionally, Tauruses are typically really responsible in a lot of different ways. They can also be really good with money, just kind of either having like a knack for financial savvy, or, just being more responsible about saving, because they really do, they're really concerned with ideas of security and stability as well. So a Taurus is someone who can defer the instant gratitude because they have like a long-term plan that they want to save for or be prepared for, those types of things. And also another group of amazing qualities for Taurus energy is kind of their steadfastness, their determination, their single-mindedness, their ability to make commitments to things and really follow through on those commitments. They have so much staying power, and Tauruses are also incredibly hardworking as well, and they really derive a lot of internal satisfaction from the idea of a job well done. So lots of wonderful things about the sign of Taurus. A couple things to be careful of when Taurus energy is really strong. We always talk about how every astrological sign has a positive expression and a more challenging expression. So the challenging expression of Taurus energy is, being careful not to let that sense of determination and commitment become stubbornness. And I'm sure many of you have heard this before, but Tauruses get a bad rap for being like one of the most stubborn signs of the zodiac, which isn't necessarily true. Aquarius, Leo, Scorpio, y'all better check yourselves, because you guys are equally as stubborn as your Taurus friends, I think. Another thing with Taurus energy is this idea of loving familiarity and loving to know what comes next and taking a lot of comfort in that. They have to be careful that they don't tend to hold on to things, whether that means people, relationships, jobs, holding on to physical things, clothes, shoes, whatever else you have in your home. For Tauruses, it's important to be able to see clearly when something has served its purpose in your life and when it's time to let that go. That can be a little challenging sometimes. In addition, Tauruses have to be careful not to let the the focus on security and stability turn into like stinginess with others or kind of a sense of being greedy. Making sure that there's a balance between having what you need to do all the things you need to do in life without overdoing it, if that makes sense. So now, focusing on this idea of what should we all be doing during this time, because whether or not you have strong Taurus energy in your personal astrology chart, the energy of Taurus is all around us in the world right now. So looking ahead to what should we be doing, the first thing is pay more attention to our bodies. Taurus is a very embodied earth sign. So I want you to be thinking about over the next 30 days, what is it that you're putting into your body? Are you giving it healthful, nourishing foods, or are you eating junk? Are you exercising your body? Knowing that looks different for all of us. Some people need a HIIT workout. Some people need yoga. Some people need just kind of slow, leisurely walks outside, and that's the right amount of exercise for them. So there's no hard and fast rule here, but make sure you are exercising your body in some way as often as you can. Also thinking about other parts of our body that we might not typically consider. So thinking about your skin or your hair or the soles of your feet or, your nails, or like if your muscles are sore, giving yourself a little massage. So just kind of really paying attention to all the different parts of our physical bodies. But most importantly, are we loving our bodies? Are the thoughts and the feelings that we're holding around our physical bodies loving and nourishing and supportive? Because if those thoughts and feelings aren't, then that causes more trouble for us than all the rest of those things combined. So really focusing on cultivating a deep sense of self-love, both for the inner and the outer. Additionally, Taurus season is an excellent time to make commitments to ourselves. So what is it that you personally want to commit to for your own growth, your own evolution? Last season, in Aries season, that's the flash of new ideas. That's the spark of fun and exciting. That's when we planted those tiny itty bitty seeds in our mind of things we might want to bring about in 2020. So now imagine that those little seeds are just becoming these tiny sprouts, barely out of the ground. So in Taurus season, we think about caring for those sprouts. How do we nourish them? How do we water them? Make sure that they're getting enough sunlight, so to speak, to really double down on our commitments to ourselves and the goals that we have. Additionally, this is an excellent time for gardening. If you don't have a green thumb, thinking of a couple of my friends in particular, you can try having a house plant like succulents. If you live in a sunny climate, tend to be pretty easy. Also bringing fresh flowers into the house. Many of us can find those at our local grocery stores, and that's a great, easy way to kind of bring that earthly element into our homes. Also caring for animals. I know a lot of you out there have pets of all kinds, so reigniting your connection to animals, your personal pets, or just animals more broadly can be great to do at this time. Also thinking about the idea of simplification. So how can you really intentionally simplify things in your life, cutting out the bullshit, cutting out the distraction, cutting out the busyness, the things that are causing drama and aren't necessary. I think it's the silver lining of this COVID quarantine time is that we're kind of being forced to do that already. A lot of that has been just kind of taken out of our lives at this point in time. So continuing on with that idea of trimming the fat, so to speak, and really starting to simplify things in our lives. Additionally, this is an excellent time to revisit our financials. Super fun for some of us, really terrifying for the majority of us. But there's no better time than Taurus season to dive into that bank account, take a look at some reports about your spending, trying to notice where have you made some really good financial decisions for yourself and congratulating yourself, give yourself a pat on the back for that. And where can you continue to make improvements? What are your financial goals for the next month, 6 months, 1 year? And I understand that things feel really unpredictable right now. It feels hard to make a plan because we just don't know exactly what's going to happen. But I think there are definitely tweaks we can make, and since we're probably on the whole doing less spending right now than we normally would, this is a great time to be taking a look at that as well. 2 last things, one of which is stimulating all 5 of your senses. So cooking a delicious meal and really savoring it after it's made. Nourishing ourselves with some nice lotions, taking a bath, getting a cozy blanket and wrapping ourselves up in it, listening to peaceful, beautiful music, eating a fabulous piece of dark chocolate. All of those things are great to do right now to be positively stimulating each of the five senses. And lastly, Taurus season is connected to the throat chakra, which is all about positive communication. It's about honesty. It's about knowing and speaking our own personal truth. So this could be a great time to work on it. For some of us, speaking our truth is really easily and comes naturally. We don't have any issues at all. And for others of us, we can find it really difficult to actually say what we mean and to say what we want, to claim that for ourselves, whatever's true for us. So I recommend try to start with something small if this is a challenge for you, and kind of work your way up to the bigger things. So it could be something as simple as, a family member or a partner asks you, hey, what do you want to have for dinner tonight? And you might say like, oh, I don't care, whatever you want. But in reality, maybe you had something in your mind, a little craving, or you had an idea of what you wanted to do, but you didn't speak that truth. And later on, you might feel a tiny little bit of disappointment about it. So just starting with some of those smaller things, trying to access and recognize what does feel true for us, and then learning how we can communicate that in a way that is kind and compassionate. The next section of our talk here always focuses on, breath work and meditation and yoga and herbs and all the things we can do to support ourselves during Taurus season in this case. So I'm going to start with herbs tonight. Some major herbs that I would recommend working with, making teas out of, using tinctures during this time are nettles, burdock root, and milk thistle. And I'm highlighting these three because these are excellent detoxifiers, kind of for the overall body in general, but also specifically for the liver. And that's really good during Taurus season because Tauruses can be a little overindulgent, whether that's food or drink or entertainment, but this idea that we might perhaps be taking stuff into our body right now that isn't actually super great for us. And so working on some of those gentle detoxification processes using nettles or burdock or milk thistle can be really good at this time. A little too much food, too much wine, too much dessert, etc. Additionally, working with rose, the scent of rose, either in an essential oil, in a lotion, working with rose water. I will not lie, I don't love the smell of rose, but I'm coming around to it a little bit more because rose it's just really loving, really nurturing. It does feel really sensual when we have like some rose lotion that we can put on our face or our bodies, etc. So if you're open to the smell of rose, that can also be a great one to work with at this time. Thinking about meditation and yoga, I'm going to just recommend anything that works on opening the throat chakra. I think it is possible to have an overactive throat chakra, but I would say the majority of us, it's probably underactive. So we want to work on opening that up and letting the energy flow. So something I've been diving into a little bit more recently is Kundalini yoga. And in Kundalini yoga, instead of static poses that you might hold for a couple breaths, they have kind of like dynamic movement with the breath. And they have some great kriyas that are focused on opening the throat area. So you can always Google that and find out more about it if that sounds like it's up your alley. Additionally, working on meditation. So meditating on the throat chakra, on the color blue, which is associated to that chakra, doing meditations with sound or music that are at specific frequencies that are intended to activate that energy as well. All that can be great stuff. Thinking about breath work, I'm going to recommend Breath of Fire be part of your normal practices this season because Breath of Fire really helps to stimulate, to detoxify, to get things moving. And Breath of Fire kind of forces us, I feel like, to release and let go as well, which is really important during Taurus times. Lastly, during Taurus season, I'm going to offer 2 stones that you could potentially work with. Those are turquoise and lapis lazuli. And those are great to work with during this season because they connect to this idea of open flow of communication, truth and honesty, and also a little bit detoxification as well. So, You could, if you have jewelry with those stones in them, you could wear it during the next month. You could carry the stones around in your pocket. You could, if you lay down and do a meditation, you could like place the stones in different parts of your body while you're meditating. There's a lot of different ways that you could use those, but turquoise and lapis lazuli are two that come highly recommended this season. Now for the last portion of our talk, I want to discuss kind of the big upcoming astrological things that I see in the sky over the next month. First of which is the new moon in Taurus. It will be this Wednesday, April 22nd. The new moon falls at 3 degrees of Taurus. So if you know where that is in your personal chart, Google and find out a little bit more about that. It's going to be in the evening. And this is a really interesting new moon. New moons are a time to set intentions always. And when we think about Taurus energy, setting intentions around creating more stability in our lives, setting intentions around simplifying, getting back to basics in some area of life, intentions around, what do you want to commit to and commit to building in your life from this point moving forward. During this new moon, though, we have some really interesting kind of, I'm going to call them like shifty energies that we might be feeling. The new moon conjunct Uranus, square Saturn, Mercury squaring Pluto. So I feel like, we're going to feel like a little rebellious, a little restless. We're going to feel like we want things to start shifting, but we're still feeling like restricted and limited. And then with that Mercury square Pluto, I think we might feel a little bit of this like power battle in our minds, like kind of our thoughts like intensifying. Potentially our opinions intensifying on things too. So I'm going to recommend that on this new moon, we just kind of try to take it easy as much as possible, depending on our own individual situations, and just really get deep into your breath work that day, that full, complete breathing, filling your chest, filling your belly, letting all your air out. Anytime you can on Wednesday, just take time out for peace and relaxation, and always remembering to come back to your breath. What's interesting too is that I kind of see those new moon themes continuing through the end of April. We also have some other things like the sun will conjunct Uranus and Mercury will square Jupiter. So I just kind of feel like that shift, that restlessness, that, my opinion becoming larger than life, like those things will probably continue through the end of April. But then we do have a little bit of reprieve in May. So one thing I want to point out first is that in the first week of May, and I forget exactly, but I think it's either May 4th or May 5th, Venus and Neptune are going to be making a kind of a challenging aspect to one another. So just being on the lookout for ways that you might be deluding yourself or others, particularly connected to money or connected to like love and relationships. So just making sure that we really keep both feet on the ground and stay really centered and not kind of let our minds run away with, rose-colored glasses, and making sure that we're looking at situations realistically and practically. That's what Taurus energy is really good at. But starting May 9th and through May 13th, so that like window of days in there, we have an awesome, like Mercury is making a really nice angle, first to Pluto, then Jupiter, then Saturn. So I kind of feel like looking at world stuff and like COVID-19 and all that, kind of feel like this is where we might start to turn a corner a little bit. I know I talked about in my last video how I thought things would start to get better in May, and of course I could be wrong, but looking at the astrology of it, I feel like at that time we might get some information breakthroughs. We might start to get some answers. We're going to start to have a little bit more solutions-oriented thinking versus fearful thinking. We might be able to come up with some logical plans and really start to put the structure of those plans into place just based on the planets that are involved in this. So I think that's a really positive sign. And again, nothing poof happens magically overnight, but I'll be interested to see if come mid-May, we kind of, more information comes out that helps us to make informed decisions and plans. And then the last thing I want to share as we wrap things up this evening is we're going to have a full moon in the sign of Scorpio this month. That comes on May 7th, and that will fall at 17 degrees of Scorpio. And so, anytime we have a Scorpio moon, that's like a deep, dark moon. That's one that invites us to get comfortable with our own psyche and what's in the depths of our psyche, and our own darkness as well. So, I think at this time of the full moon on May 7th, there might be a little bit of a conflict between like our intuitive mind and our rational mind. So you might notice that what you feel and what seems logical to you are kind of at odds with each other. And, I would say the best way to deal with the strong energy of a full moon in Scorpio is to channel anything you're feeling into a creative project. There's a really nice angle between that moon and the planet Neptune at that time. So that can be, anything you're feeling or any, probing of your own depths that you want to do. It can be really great to express that in some type of creative way. And I think the main message of this full moon in Scorpio, in my opinion, is going to be learning how to acknowledge and accept your own fears. And in doing so, release the power that those fears have over you. New moons are about culmination, release, and ending. So I think it's time to release ourselves from the hold of fear, knowing that it doesn't mean that we're not afraid necessarily. It just means that we've accepted that fear. We know it is a part of us, and therefore it doesn't rule us. It's not powerful over us. We are powerful over the fear. So that is my parting message for that full moon in Scorpio. But a big month coming up here, April 19th to May 20th, Taurus season. If you have any questions, I'd love to connect with you further, either through email. You can email me at kelsey@theastroyogi.com. You can connect with me on Instagram. My handle is _astro_yogi. So would love to touch base, talk more about Taurus season or other fun astrological things. But I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Bye.